Hi, Giles. Lovely to see you today. Thank you for coming into our studio and bringing this delightful selection of new collections of artworks. So we're here today. We're going to ask 7 questions with Giles. It's going to focus on some of his inspirations, his techniques, and hopefully we will learn something today. So Giles, first of all, for anyone kind of discovering your work for the first time here, how would you kind of describe your inspiration and the techniques you use to paint?
Well, I'm very much inspired by the natural world, which is sort of obvious around us. And one of the key subjects I'm very interested in is sea life and sea world and stuff. I'm really drawn to the visual part of nature, so the real close-up detail that you get with nature. I think nature is almost the world's best artist, because nature's created these incredible things, patterns, colours, life, that actually there's just no limits to the amount of inspiration that you get from it. And I just love being drawn in. So somebody first coming to my work, I would say it's all about nature. It's all about the life around you. It's all about stuff that anybody can see wherever you're walking, whatever you're doing. It's all around us, and it's just taking that moment to stop and see it.
Yeah, and juxtaposed with these bold colours, which you sort of become known for as well.
Yeah, I have a variety of different sort of styles. I mean, it's all drawn from the same sort of place, and it's the inspiration of what's in nature, and particularly my sea life work, which I suppose I've become more renowned for. It's getting into that detail. I love contrasts. So when you're looking at something like this, these really big, bold, strong colours, it's really about trying to make the detail of the sea life come alive.
That's it.
So in something like seahorses you see there, that's a langoustine we've got there. You've got herring over there. They're all of them are full of these incredible colours. And for me, it's about making sure you create a distinction between those and the background that then makes them pictorial.
Yeah.
So for me, the contrast, the lovely oranges in that with a sort of a deep blue, it's just a natural way of making those colours.
Makes them pop, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Fab. So this new collection includes different subject matter with the bees.
Yes.
When I saw them, I loved it instantly. I said, yes, that's for the gallery. So what drew you to that subject matter? Why the change?
Well, in some ways, it seems like an odd step going from seahorses to bees. But actually, no, there's a very, very natural link. As I say, I'm inspired by the natural world, that sort of detail. And particularly close up, I'm absolutely fascinated by small creatures. So, yes, bugs and stuff. Actually, it could be things like shells, it could be leaves, it could be feathers. Yes, bees, but I've done, ladybirds, beetles. I've even done a scorpion, for example. But they've all actually got a commonality to them, which is these incredible things that nature have created. Yeah. If you just take a moment to stop and look really closely at, they suddenly create these fantastic worlds. Bees are just wonderful creatures in themselves, but again, they buzz around, they don't sort of stop. You don't really see them very closely if you're not careful. So just take a moment to stop and look at them. They've got these wonderful furry bodies, which is completely different to these very sort of gentle wings, tissue-like wings, and the textures and the patterns within just a tiny thing that size is incredible. And as I say, it could be bees, it could be shells. I mean, just something as simple as a feather. Tiny little feather. If you're ever on a walk and you just pick up a feather, you actually take a moment, stop and look at it. Not only is the texture is amazing, the patterns are amazing, there's also hundreds of colours in there. You think it's a white feather. It's not a white feather. It's a feather that looks white until you start looking.
There's shades of greys and purples.
Purples, blues, and in different light, of course. You might get lots of different colours in there. So for me, it's a very, very natural progression and something I want to explore further, actually.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what your collectors think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
So your works are known for the textures and the materials and techniques that you use. For example, the collage here with the langoustine. Yeah. Maybe you can tell your collectors and people new to your works a little bit about the techniques that you use and how you achieve that.
Well, it's really interesting. That's very important to me, actually, is the texturing. And I think that is a commonality. Doesn't matter what subject I'm doing. So firstly, sort of the painting techniques. I love depth. I love depth within an image. And I find that really helps if I'm sort of putting on layers and layers of paint. I almost think it's sculptural, actually. I love playing with sculpture as well and playing with clay. As a kid, I used to play with clay and stuff. You can almost see that in my paintings. There's some herring behind you there, which you've got, the gills come out and the eyes sink back and things like that. And for me, that's a very important part of it, getting that real depth. And layering is very important. So all of my paintings actually take quite a long time, mainly because of the time it takes between layers to dry and set. And I think that's what gives them that depth. So I'll start, so different materials. Actually, I use lots of different materials. They're all finished in oils, but they all start in acrylic. And along the way, they'll use lots of different things. I'll use house paint, I'll use spray paint, I use inks, I use metallics and stuff to just build up lots of different layers. Because the other thing I absolutely love as a painter is surprises. So when I'm doing a picture, I need to be surprised by it.
Oh, wow.
I need to enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
If I know exactly what I'm painting, my paintings aren't realist. They're never supposed to be realist. They're supposed to be representational. And part of that is because I like surprises. If I'm going to be very realist, if I was going to paint that glass down and make it a very realist painting of a glass, there's no surprises for me as I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I like surprises, splashing some paint on it, or some material, or some texture, building it up and going, well, wow, oh, quite like what's happened there, and then making a decision which bits to leave, which bits not to leave. So the langoustine there that you've got behind you, Ashley, there'll be things that's happened there where I've slightly scribbled on it, or I've dropped some paint on it, gone, yeah, I'll leave that.
Yeah.
I like how that's happened.
And that's great, because that's what gives the energy to it, doesn't it? It brings it alive. Yeah.
Energy is a great word. It's a bit of movement as well, hopefully, and a bit of life to it as well. Again, those fish behind you, I think there's movement because they're going backwards and forwards.
That's
lots of paint splashing, which is almost like the water splashing, for example. So the texture, the layers, very important to me. The background, again, it's about trying to create a contrast to some extent. This one, simple background to bring out the contrast of colours. That one, I like using different material in background. Again, as a contrast, but also a way of creating surprises. You can have a bit more freedom with a background like that. So if I put those layers of materials in there, again, I can drop things all over it. Now, as Andy, I'm quite clumsy in this studio. So if I knock some paint on, some water on it, I don't have to worry about it. I just let it be part of the painting.
Yeah.
And actually, that's where you find fun things happening.
And you once mentioned that you even mixed in shells sometimes with the paint.
I absolutely do. I do a lot of crabs, and the crabs absolutely
They have crab shells in the paint. Yeah.
I'm a bit of a kleptomaniac when it comes to finding things in nature. So if you come to my studio, you'll see, a bit like I talked earlier, I've got shells and conkers and feathers and bits of fish and all these sort of things. And the crab shell is picked up on walking on beaches. It's going rock pooling and stuff and bringing the shell. And they bring the shell back and I crumble it in stuff. I put barnacles on top. Barnacles are wonderful things. So I put little barnacles on, or even little bits of seaweed and stuff like that. Yeah. And I find, again, it creates the surprises that I like, but it builds up that texture. Gives it that lift and gives it the depth to a picture, which I think, really gives.
Which is hard to appreciate on the screen, but when people see them in real life, that's what really jumps out.
I do find, I do find you've got to almost come and look at it. Again, I'm just looking at the seahorse here, and you look at it from slightly different angles, it comes alive a little bit more because of that depth of texture.
So aside from the unusual materials that you might use, like the shell and the inks and charcoals, do you use any unusual tools in your process?
Well, yeah, again, it's all part of the process of experimenting and playing. So actually, I don't think, obviously I use brushes a lot, but I'm not a big fan of actual brush strokes, because the moment you're using a lot of brush strokes, well, they're very clear in a picture. For me, it becomes more of a picture, if that makes sense. So I do use lots of different tools. I use palette knives, I use sponges, I do a lot of dropping and dripping and stuff, and just letting the paint do its own thing. Okay. So, yeah, for me, that's a very important part.
And I think that playfulness comes through in the work, doesn't it? Because when you're using your hands and spatulas and tools, it has a fun, energetic vibrancy to it, which everyone loves.
Maybe that's true. I mean, people do say that they find my pictures fun, which, you know what, I like that. I like that a lot.
I would, if we can, like to just talk about the kind of collage backgrounds, I call it. I mean, this one with the langoustine, I can see you've got bits of trigonometry on there, and this is all about the sun and stars correction chart. How do you choose these? Are they by design, or is this more of a happy accident?
Well, a combination of both, actually. So that's really interesting. They're actually, behind that one is longitude and latitude tables and stuff. So they're for seafaring tables, so that ties in with the sea.
Okay.
But then you've got the stamps, which are purely there from a visual point of view. Because I love stamps, I love old stamp albums, those sort of things. I will use lots of different things. old exercise books. I think up there, that's an old exercise book. I can't even remember where I found that now. It might have been a car boot sale or a junk shop or something. And somebody's old textbook that they were writing in from years ago at school, it's ended up in the background of the picture because I just love the handwriting on there. And that's letters, old letters, things like that. So it will be a combination of visually, I like that. I know what the picture I'm going to build on top of it, but I will deliberately not be too contrived when I'm creating that montage in the background. It is a collage. So when I'm creating that collage in the background, I'm not over it. You'll see some of the pages are upside down, some are on the side, some back to front. And again, it's done purely visually. I'm not paying attention to the words. I'm not wanting the words to necessarily relate to each other. I'm just putting there to create a pattern that I like, to create a texture, and then I'm painting over the top of it.
And what's fascinating is you're weaving history into something which is new. So,
that's interesting.
There's kind of a history behind the painting, whilst it might be a new subject. Yeah. Are there any subject matters that you found have been particularly popular over the years?
There's certainly some images that are more popular. I mean, I've become sort of known particularly for the fish and the sea life. But there are certain images that seem to stand out and resonate with people. This is a good example, actually, seahorses. Seahorses are relatively recent. I've been doing it a few years. And I think it's the boldness and the strength of sort of the colours and stuff. I mean, to the point where actually now we do sort of a range of prints of these. They become so popular. People like them. They're very graphic. They're very bold. As I spoke earlier, the contrast between this from the backgrounds and the vibrancy of the subject that people find very graphic, and that translates very well.
And what's great about the prints, as well as being an entry point for collectors of your work, is they're on board and varnished, so they don't need to be under glass. So there's no worry about kind of glare or anything like that. Which,
no, absolutely. The reproduction of that is absolutely fantastic. They've been very, very well done.
So, Giles, we've covered a lot of interesting ground in this interview. I just wondered if you could kind of sum up this collection in 3 words. What would they be?
3 words, that's quite challenging, isn't it? I think the first word has to be playful. So a bit of we covered before. I just love the playing element of it, playing what I'm doing, but also hopefully the playfulness of the images. Colourful. I hope colourful comes out. I love putting colour in there. I love that bouncing off the walls for people. And I think the third thing, I don't know if it's one word, but thought-provoking. Thought-provoking, because if there's one thing I do want to do with my imagery, is to get people to stop and look at nature. Look at my art, of course, look at my paintings, but look at nature and realise the wonderful detail there is in any nature all around us.
That's amazing. I mean, really inspirational, and I think everyone will agree it's a pleasure to learn from you in terms of your techniques and your inspiration behind your work. So thank you so much for coming in today.
No, you're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. And so if you've enjoyed this In the Studio series, leave us a comment. Follow us for the next one, and we hope to see you soon.